On a normal day, many of us can be attracted to mysterious and even scary games. One of these games is the glass game, something that seems harmless at first glance. But as you will see in the following story, it is not always like that. Get ready to hear the story of Patricia Matthias, a young woman who experienced something truly inexplicable. This is Patricia Matthias' story about the game that changed her life. It all started in 2006 when two friends and I decided to play the glass game. We didn't really know what we were doing. We just wanted to try something different and maybe a little scary. It was a normal night, and we were at one of my friends' houses in a quieter area in the countryside, far from the city. We settled into the living room, moving the furniture around to make enough space for the game. We placed the glass in the center of the table with the candles lit around us, as if this were part of the magic. We started toying with the idea of asking things to the spirit or whatever was behind the game. At first, nothing happened. The glass didn't move, and we started to think it was just a meaningless game. But then something strange started to happen. The glass suddenly moved. It was a slow movement, but clear. It slid towards the letter as if an invisible force was acting on it, pushing. We remained silent. We didn't know what to do. And suddenly, one of our friends started asking more serious questions. She asked the name of a spirit and if it wanted to communicate with us. The glass moved faster and faster, going from letter to letter, forming words that didn't make any sense. Until, at a certain point, the glass abruptly slipped out of our hands as if someone had taken it away. Suddenly, a strange sound, as if something was dragging itself through the house, made our legs tremble with fear. But the worst was yet to come. While we were trying to understand what was happening, one of the house cats, who was in the other room, ran to the table. He seemed agitated, and the moment he jumped onto the table, a candle went out by itself. The room became cold, much colder than it should have been, and it was at that moment that I felt a sharp pain in my cheeks. 2 slaps, one on each side of my face, that made me scream in pain. I looked at my friends and saw that they were as scared as I was. Desperate, we ended the game, blew out the candles, and left the house, trying to forget everything that had happened. But to my surprise, the strangest thing was yet to come. When I got home, I noticed something that made me question whether everything I had experienced was real. When I got to my room, I went to the mirror and saw red marks on my face, exactly where I had felt the slaps. And most frightening of all, these marks disappeared after an hour. I don't know what happened that night, but I can assure you that something out of the ordinary happened. After that experience, I never played the glass game again, and whenever I remember that night, I feel a mixture of fear and curiosity about what really happened at that moment. This is Patricia Matthias' story. Does the glass game really connect us to the afterlife? Or is there something more psychological and inexplicable in the game? What do you think of this story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Some people look for fun in games, but some of them can have consequences that go far beyond what they expected. Today, you will learn the story of Angela, a young woman from Portugal who, with her friends, embarked on an experience they would never forget. A seemingly harmless game, the glass game, ended up revealing something much scarier than they could ever imagine. Get ready to hear a chilling tale of mystery, strange lights, and unexplained events. It was on a rainy winter afternoon that my friends and I decided to try the glass game. We had heard about it, but we had never had the courage to try it. I, specifically, had an interest in witchcraft, and had always sought to understand more about the mystical side of life. But at that moment, I imagined what could happen. We met in the attic of a friend's house. The place was the perfect environment for something like this. Dark, isolated, with the sound of rain above our heads, and a few candles scattered on the floor, creating a soft and flickering light. The room was silent, except for the sound of the wind and rain, and the candles flickered, as if they wanted to envelop us in that dense atmosphere. We placed the glass cup in the center of the table and started asking questions. At first, the cup didn't move, but over time, it began to slide gently towards the letters, forming words, and soon we were talking to something that seemed to really answer us. My friends and I were completely hypnotized by what was happening there, fear mixed with curiosity in our paralyzed blankets. It was then that something strange happened. A red-orange light, like a reflection or some kind of aura, appeared on the wall of the attic. It was a weak light, but intense enough for all of us to see each other clearly. No one could explain what it was, and a feeling of cold permeated the room. The glass moved abruptly, much faster than before, and suddenly stopped in the middle of the table. We were silent for a moment, waiting for something to happen, but the silence only increased the tension. That was when one of my friends started to feel bad. She was pale, with tears in her eyes, and suddenly fell into her chair, saying that she felt a strong pressure in her chest. We were desperate. I knew that, for some reason, it was connected to the game we had just played. I, who always liked to research witchcraft, tried to use some knowledge I had to help. I started trying a prayer, asking for protection for all of us, but the situation did not improve. The friend who was sick seemed to get worse. She started having spasms. Her body was hot and sweaty, and her breathing became irregular. The atmosphere became heavier, and we all panicked. So we decided to end the game and blow out the candles. But even after we left the attic, something was still strange. That red-orange light we saw on the wall never completely disappeared from our minds. In the following days, my friend who had gotten sick became ill with a high fever and body aches. Even though the doctor said it was just the flu, we all knew something was wrong. It was as if the game had opened a door to something that should not have been touched. The feeling of discomfort lasted for a long time, and I personally never played the cup game again. I never tried to summon anything that was beyond our understanding. This is the story of Angela and her friends, and what happened when they decided to play the cup game. Was it just a coincidence? Or did the glass game really bring something otherworldly into your home?
Sometimes, the most innocent games can lead us to situations we never imagined. Today, we are going to tell the story of Kellen, a young girl from Portugal who, together with her friends, decided to play the cup game without knowing that this decision would change their lives forever. Get ready for a story of fear, mysterious laughter, and a dark presence that seemed to be closer than they could control. It was on a quiet night in a house in the countryside that my two friends and I tried the famous glass game. We were in a secluded environment, far from the city, with no one around. At first, nothing much happened. The glass was on the table, and until then, it only moved slightly with the pressure of our fingers. But as time went by, the glass began to move on its own, more evidently, without anyone touching it. The words we formed with the questions became increasingly confused, and that was when the laughter began to echo in the room. It was not human laughter, but sounds that seemed to come from a deeper, more distant place, but clearly audible. The three of us looked at each other, not knowing what to think. Fear was taking over us. It was then that one of my friends started to cry. She seemed panicked, her eyes wide open, and she said that something was touching her hair. We tried to calm her down, but she was visibly scared. When she turned to us, it was as if she saw something we shouldn't have seen. She spoke even louder, saying that a figure was pulling her hair. The atmosphere became heavy, the temperature dropped dramatically, and the three of us were paralyzed with fear. We knew that something was not right. The glass game seemed to have attracted something to that house, something that we couldn't control. At that moment, I asked my neighbor, who also lived near the house, for help, and he came to us. Desperate, I began to pray with him, asking for protection and to avoid any presence that was haunting us. We prayed for a long time, but the terror didn't seem to end. The environment was saturated with a dense and oppressive energy. Even after we finished the game and blew out the candles, the feeling of fear continued. The laughter still echoed in our minds, and a feeling of unease stayed with us all. In the following days, my friend who saw the figure began to become more withdrawn, and her emotional health deteriorated. The experience left deep scars on her and on us. It was as if a part of that night, that presence, had followed us. After the incident, we never played the glass game again. The memory of that night haunted our thoughts, and the weight of what we had experienced was still present in our lives. I learned the hard way that some games should not be played, and that there are things in the afterlife that perhaps we should never try to summon.